in this video, we're going to talk about why you deserve to be alone. And we mean specifically in regards to women, because right now there is an epidemic. There's a real epidemic, unlike certain other ones, about men being alone, about men not getting laid. There's a higher percentage of men who are not getting laid, who are not able to attract women, who are completely alone by themselves than ever before, except if you go back to like the 1800s or some shit. Probably even worse than that. But
It's god awful.
At least in the last 50 years, it's never been worse. And it's getting worse every year, where more and more men are alone and they're fucking pathetic and they're making excuses. And this video is about why you deserve that. If you are having a lack of options in regards to dating, you are unsatisfied with your sex life, you deserve it.
A cold approach, pickup art, day game, or whatever you want to call it, is mostly a waste of time strategy for any average or below average guys. And though it's not anywhere nearly as bad as online dating or nightclub approaching as covered in the last 2 episodes, in my opinion, it still makes the top 3 for worst possible approaching strategies.
You need to admit that you deserve it. You need to admit that you've been fucking up. And if you hear this and you're like, no, it's because of my X, Y, and Z. I'm too short. It's never going to work. I'm only 5'7", and no girl's ever going to want me. Well, then click off this video. Keep crying. Your genes do not need to get passed on, right? If you have that mindset, if you really are that much of a loser that you can't handle a little bit of a harsh truth, click off and just give up, right? Or buy a bride from like Thailand or some shit. You've got options. But overall, the reason men are struggling in dating more than ever is because men have become more passive. We've become more addicted to being on our screens and to be comfortable. We look for ways to be comfortable. We need to, oh, well, I could go meet girls in real life, but I could watch Pornhub. You're not allowed to say the other one. I'm going to watch Pornhub and just waste my seed on that, waste my energy on that, because a real woman, that's scary. Oh no, it's scary.
No.
You need to admit that you're being a total bitch, that your entire life is kind of sad and kind of pathetic if you're not able to get women. And you can say it's because my looks. Have you even maxed out your looks? Right? I haven't maxed out my looks. I still get laid all the time. But have you maxed out your looks? If that's your excuse, why aren't you ripped? Right? Even if you did steroids, I could at least respect that you did steroids and you got ripped more than being some fat ass or being some skinny guy who hasn't tried.
Especially if you say that looks are the only thing that matters. If you think that looks are the only thing that matters, the only thing that we care about is that you actually take that to the extreme and you still want to complain and bitch about it. You're like, looks are the only thing that matter. Then if looks are the only thing that matters, why are you not taking advantage of that? Why are you being so soft? Why are you not like fucking doing the fuck you have to do to attract women? Like, if you think looks matter, what are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you at?
We live in a society that coddles us. We have too much comfort to where we've become weak, right? Back in the day, men had to go through genuine struggle. Even go back, when was the Vietnam War? 50 years ago about? That was about 50 years ago, not that long ago. And just being born a man, you had to go shoot people, which I think is awful. But you had to actually deal with real adversity. And now modern men have become so weak that they're afraid to even approach girls. They're like, oh, I'll get a bad reputation. Have you ever tried? No, but I might get a bad reputation. Oh, I might get rejected. My feelings might get hurt. Oh no, my feelings. I have emotions. Oh, my emotions. Are you in your fucking period? The fuck is wrong with you? A lot of the guys watching this, they've gone out like twice. They've gone out twice in the last year, right? Yeah. They're not trying. They've told themselves it's impossible. They've told themselves all these rationales that it's not going to work for me. They've convinced themselves it's not worth trying. Or maybe I did try once. I went out and I went out 5 times and I did 3 approaches and I didn't get laid. It doesn't work for me. There's just the level of softness. You deserve to be alone if you think like that. Yeah. You deserve it. Anything that is worth having in life requires some level of struggle. It requires you to do things that other people are not willing to do. It requires you to take risks. And if you're okay with that, you're like, you know what? I am a total bitch and I do not want to deal with adversity. I do not want to deal with getting rejected. I don't want to have to go to the club and be intimidated. It's all loud and oh my God, and all the caring.
They can't even hear me. How do I even have conversations
That-
with girls?
That is fucking fine. But just admit it and then become a monk and die alone. That is fine if that's what you want to do. But you need to admit to yourself that you're not trying. You have never tried, and telling yourself that you have and that it's not your fault is bullshit. And that is why you are failing, because you've convinced yourself that this half-ass mentality that is nothing, that is beta, is worth something, that is acceptable. Just admit that you're a total bitch.
Oh, and for everybody's asking a question, we'll go through briefly in the comment section below, but we're gonna go through.
We're gonna go to the club and actually get laid.
Well, we are going to go to the club too, but I'll try my best to answer everybody in the comment section below. So if you guys do want to like throw some questions down, don't be afraid to do it. Also like the video as well. It helps us out if you feel very like a generous human being. You're like, these two guys seem kind of cool. Don't be
For
afraid.
berating me.
Yeah, right.
I appreciate the berating.
Yeah. So here, I'll put it like this though. It took me for my first year of game, for my first 3 years of game, I thought the only thing that matters was looks.
Really?
And like, yeah, well, I was even getting improvements. I even was improving year after year. But I wasn't like coming at a certain, thanks for like the video, by the way. For people that that get into this early, like you guys try for like a year and like, but you're backwards rationalizing the entire time that looks are what matter. And then like, what you do is you come with the rationalizations and then you backwards rationalize it after the fact you come up with the decision. So you're like, okay, cool. I decided looks matter. So where's my proof of this being the case? Whereas like when you're doing game a long time, you kind of get to the point where you're like, look, obviously this isn't the only thing that matters. The one thing that girls want.
Do you know the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Yes.
Because that's what this is an example of.
Yeah.
All of your limiting beliefs are mostly just the Dunning-Kruger effect, which means that someone who is an expert in something, a genuine expert, someone has a degree, right? Someone who's got a PhD. If you ask them about like an expert in attraction, you ask them what makes attraction work, they'd be like, well, it's complicated. It's a little bit this, it's a little bit that, it's for this. I don't really know. It's a very nuanced, difficult question to answer. I don't know for certain. I have my theories, but it's complicated. You ask a total beginner with no knowledge, because our brain likes simple answers that are just easy to latch onto, right? Oh, it's all looks. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. A beginner, someone who's actually a dilettante who thinks they're an expert, is actually a total beginner and knows shit. They're going to tell themselves, I understand all the nuances of it. I've put together all the equations and I found, even though I've never approached a single girl in my life, and even though I've never put any effort into anything other than making excuses, despite all that, I have found that looks are all that matter. I am the expert. And that is the mindset many of you are coming from. The guys who haven't tried, it's because on some level you've convinced yourself an overly simplistic belief, because if you don't try, it's so much more comforting to tell yourself, oh, it's only looks, it's only this. But if you actually tried, you would quickly disprove that. And you need to be able to admit that you're an ignorant motherfucker. And as soon as you can admit that you're not as smart as you think you are, that's when you can actually learn. I mean, one of the wisest men of all time, Socrates, his most famous quote was, the more I know nothing.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's what being intelligent and being able to improve rests on your ability to admit how ignorant you are and to experiment, to see life as an experiment, to try things, to put yourself out there and see what works and see what doesn't. Don't assume what we're saying is true. Don't assume that either, but be willing to get information from actual experimentation.